The rehearsal dinner was perfect. Too perfect. Crystal glasses clinked under the soft glow of hanging lights while my daughter Jessica laughed at something her fiancé Marcus whispered in her ear. I watched them from across the garden, feeling that familiar tug in my chest. 23 years of raising her alone. And now she was getting married. Marcus caught my eye and smiled. That same smile that had charmed everyone in our family for the past year. The smile that made my stomach twist with unease even though I could never explain why. Mrs. Chen. His voice was smooth as he approached my table. Could we talk privately for a moment? I followed him past the rose bushes into the empty gazebo. The evening air smelled like jasmine and expensive wine. Marcus leaned against the railing. His designer suit perfectly tailored. He did not look at me. I think we should be honest with each other. His tone had changed. The warmth was gone. About what? He turned to face me then. His expression was cold. Calculated. About tomorrow and what happens after. I do not understand. Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through something before putting it back in his pocket. Jessica and I have been discussing our future. We want a fresh start. No interference. No baggage from the past. The word baggage hit me like a slap. Are you calling me baggage? I'm calling you a problem. He straightened his tie. You hover too much. You call too often. You insert yourself into every decision we make. Jessica is too kind to say it, but I am not. We want you out of our lives. My hands started shaking. I gripped the gazebo railing to steady myself. Jessica agreed to this. It was her idea actually. Marcus smiled again, but this time there was cruelty in it. She is just afraid of hurting your feelings. But me. I have no problem being direct. You know what would be the perfect wedding gift? You disappearing from our family forever. The world tilted. I stared at this man who was about to become my son-in-law. This man who had just asked me to erase myself from my only child's life. If I refuse, then Jessica chooses between her husband and her mother. He shrugged like we were discussing the weather. And trust me, Mrs. Chen, you will not like how that choice goes. Marriage comes first. You come last. He walked away, leaving me alone in the gazebo. The party continued without pause. Music played. People laughed. My daughter danced with her bridesmaids, completely unaware that her future husband had just tried to delete me from existence. I stood there for 20 minutes, watching through the gaps in the lattice. Watching Jessica's face light up every time Marcus touched her hand. Watching him play the perfect fiancé while knowing what he had just said to me. Then I pulled out my phone and made a call. The voice on the other end was familiar. Professional. My private investigator had been quiet for weeks, but I had kept him on retainer. Just in case. Robert, I need everything you have on Marcus Webb. Everything. And I need it by morning. There was a pause. Mrs. Chen, are you sure? Once we go down this road. I'm sure. Send it all. I drove home in silence. The house felt empty without Jessica. She had moved most of her things to Marcus's apartment months ago. Her bedroom was a museum of her childhood. Dance trophies on the shelf. College textbooks stacked in the corner. Photos of her and her father before the cancer took him. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. The email from Robert arrived at midnight. The subject line read, "You need to see this." Inside were 40 pages of documentation. Bank records, police reports, court documents, testimonies from 3 different women. Each one told the same story. Marcus Webb was not who he claimed to be. The investment firm job. He had been fired 8 months ago for embezzlement. The wealthy family background. His parents had disowned him 2 years ago after he stole money from his grandmother. The business degree from Princeton. He had dropped out after 1 semester. But the worst part was the pattern. 3 different women in 3 different cities. All of them had wealthy, widowed mothers. All of them had been engaged to Marcus Webb or whatever name he was using at the time. All of them had lost money. Lots of money. One woman's testimony made me physically sick. He isolated me from my family, she wrote in her police statement. He made me believe my mother was controlling and toxic. By the time I realized what he was doing, he had drained $50,000 from my accounts and disappeared. I read until sunrise. Every page made me angrier. Every document confirmed what my instincts had been screaming for months. Marcus Webb was a predator, and my daughter was his next victim. But I was not going to let that happen. At 7 in the morning, I called my real estate agent. Linda, I need to sell the beach house. Today. The beach house. My retirement dream. The property I had been planning to give Jessica and Marcus as their wedding gift. She had been posting pictures of it online for months. Our future home, the caption said. Cannot wait to start our life here. Margaret, the wedding is today. Are you sure about this? I am absolutely sure. Price it to sell immediately. I do not care if we lose money. Next, I called the printer. I need 200 copies of a document packet. Today. Before noon. Then I called Helen, the wedding coordinator. I need to make a small change to the reception setup. Helen sighed. Margaret, we are hours away from the ceremony. What kind of change? I need a small envelope placed at every seat. White envelopes. Nothing fancy. I will drop them off in 2 hours. What is in the envelopes? Wedding favors. Very special wedding favors. I spent the next hour preparing. My hands shook as I assembled the packets. Each one contained a summary of Marcus Webb's criminal history. Bank statements showing his debts. Photos from his previous engagements. Testimony from his victims. 175 guests were coming to the wedding. 175 people would learn exactly who Marcus Webb really was. I sealed the last envelope as the sun rose higher. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda. Already have 3 offers on the beach house. This is moving fast. Accept the highest offer. Cash only. The ceremony was at 4 in the afternoon. I arrived early, carrying a box of envelopes. Helen met me at the entrance, her face tight with worry. Margaret, I have known you for 20 years. Please tell me you are not doing something you will regret. I am doing something I will never regret. Trust me. She took the box but would not look at me. Your daughter is going to hate you for this. Maybe. But she will be safe. And that is all that matters. I went to the bridal suite where Jessica was getting ready. She was beautiful in her white dress. Her dark hair was twisted into an elegant updo. Diamond earrings sparkled in the light. Mom. She rushed over to hug me. I'm so nervous. What if something goes wrong? I held her tight, breathing in her perfume. Sweetheart, sometimes things have to go wrong so that bigger disasters can be prevented. She pulled back and laughed. You are so dramatic today. Save some of that energy for your mother of the bride speech tonight. About that speech. I might not be giving it after all. What? Mo. You have to give a speech. You are my mother. We will see how the evening goes. I kissed her forehead. Just remember that everything I do is because I love you. Always. The ceremony began at 4. Jessica walked down the aisle on her uncle's arm. She looked like a princess. Marcus stood at the altar in his expensive tuxedo, smiling his perfect smile. I sat in the front row and watched my daughter marry a con artist. When the minister asked if anyone objected, I stayed silent. The truth would speak for itself soon enough. You may now kiss the bride. They kissed. Everyone applauded. Jessica's face glowed with happiness as they walked back down the aisle together. She caught my eye and mouthed, I love you. I mouthed it back, knowing that in a few hours she might never speak to me again. The reception was held in the grand ballroom. Gold decorations hung from the ceiling. White roses covered every surface. A string quartet played soft music while guests found their seats. Each place setting had been carefully arranged. Fine china, crystal glasses, silver cutlery, and one small white envelope with the guest's name written in elegant script. I watched from my seat at the head table as people began to notice the envelopes. Curiosity spread through the room like wildfire. Hands reached for the mysterious packages. Ladies and gentlemen. The MC's voice boomed through the speakers. Before we begin dinner, I have been asked to inform you that the bride's mother has placed a special message at each setting. Please feel free to open your envelopes now. 175 people opened 175 envelopes simultaneously. The first gasp came from the left side of the room. Then another from the back. Within 30 seconds, the entire ballroom had gone silent. The only sound was pages rustling as people read the documents I had prepared. Marcus noticed the change first. His head swiveled around the room, taking in the shocked faces, the whispered conversations, the looks of disgust being thrown his way. When his eyes found mine, I raised my champagne glass. Cheers. Jessica's voice was small, confused. What is happening? Everyone looks upset. That was when Marcus's college roommate stood up. His face was red with anger. He held his envelope like evidence. Marcus, we need to talk. Right now. David, hey. Marcus forced a laugh. Can it wait? Kind of busy here. David walked toward our table. His hands were shaking. According to this, you owe me $15,000. The investment opportunity you pitched last summer. The one where you said you could double my money in 6 months. Jessica's face went white. What investment opportunity? Before Marcus could answer, another voice rang out. He owes me $10,000. It was Sarah, one of Jessica's sorority sisters. For the bakery business we were supposedly starting together. Then another voice. $8,000 for the tech startup. Another. $12,000 for real estate development. The voices multiplied. One by one, guests stood up clutching their envelopes. Clutching proof of Marcus Webb's crimes. The room erupted into chaos. This is insane. Marcus stood up so fast his chair fell over. Margaret, what have you done? I granted your wish. I cut into my salmon like nothing was happening. You wanted me to disappear from your lives. So I am taking everything with me. Including the beach house you thought was yours. Jessica gasped. The beach house. Mom, that was our wedding gift. I pulled out a folded paper from my purse and placed it in front of her. Sold this morning. The new owners move in next week. You sold our house. Jessica's voice cracked. How could you do that? It was never your house, sweetheart. It was mine. And I chose to sell it. Just like you chose to tell Marcus you wanted me out of your life. I never said that. Jessica looked at Marcus with confusion and growing horror. What is she talking about? But Marcus was not listening anymore. He was backing away from the table as more guests approached. Some were on their phones, probably calling lawyers. Others were comparing their documents, realizing how extensively they had been scammed. Marcus, explain this. Jessica grabbed his arm. Explain all of this right now. This is clearly a misunderstanding. Marcus pulled his arm free. Your mother is having some kind of breakdown. We should leave. But Jessica planted her feet. Well, we are not leaving until someone tells me the truth. I looked at my daughter. At her beautiful face twisted with confusion and betrayal. At the white dress she had spent months picking out. At the ring on her finger that I now knew had been bought with stolen money. Last night I said quietly, your fiancé came to me privately. He told me that the perfect wedding gift would be my permanent disappearance from your life. He said it was your idea. That you were too polite to tell me yourself. That is not true. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I never said that. I never wanted you gone. Mom, I would never. Tell her, Marcus. I stood up and faced him directly. Tell my daughter exactly what you said in the gazebo last night. But Marcus was no longer the charming man who had won over my family. His mask had slipped completely. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. He looked like a cornered animal. This is harassment. He pointed at me with a trembling finger. My lawyer will hear about this. All of this is lies. That was when Judge Morrison stood up from his table. He was my late husband's old friend. A man who had presided over criminal cases for 30 years. His voice cut through the chaos. Actually, son, it is not lies. His voice was calm. Authoritative. I have reviewed these documents. Police reports from 3 different states. Testimony from multiple victims. Financial records showing systematic fraud. This is very real. The room went silent again. All eyes turned to Marcus, waiting for his explanation, waiting for him to prove everyone wrong. Instead, he ran. He bolted for the exit, pushing past guests and waiters. His expensive shoes slipped on the polished floor. 2 of Jessica's uncles caught him before he reached the door. "Let me go." Marcus struggled against their grip. "This is illegal. You cannot hold me here. Actually, we can." Detective Williams stepped forward. He had been a guest at the wedding, but now he was all business. "Budge out. Face serious. Marcus Webb, I am placing you under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement." The handcuffs clicked into place. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom. Jessica stood frozen, watching her new husband being arrested at their wedding reception. "This cannot be happening." She whispered it over and over like a prayer. "This cannot be happening." I walked over to her, wrapped my arms around her as she started to cry. She did not push me away. She collapsed against me, her white dress crumpling, her perfect hairdo falling apart. "I am so sorry, sweetheart." I held her tight while she sobbed. "I'm so sorry." Marcus was led out in handcuffs, still protesting his innocence. Guests stood in shocked silence, some crying, some angry, all of them trying to process what they had just witnessed. The wedding cake sat untouched. The first dance would never happen. The carefully planned reception had turned into a crime scene. But my daughter was safe. That was all that mattered. Hours later, after the police had taken statements and most guests had left, Jessica and I sat alone in the empty ballroom. She was still in her wedding dress. I was still in my mother-of-the-bride outfit. The decorations that had looked so beautiful now seemed sad and wilted. "How long have you known?" Jessica's voice was hoarse from crying. "About 6 months. I hired a private investigator after I started having concerns." 6 months. She shook her head. "You knew for 6 months and you did not tell me." "Tried. Remember when I suggested postponing the wedding? When I asked you to look into Marcus's background more carefully? Every time I tried to warn you, you shut me down." Jessica was quiet. We both knew I was right. She had been so in love, so excited about her future, that she had refused to see any warning signs. "He told me you were jealous." Jessica wiped her eyes. "He said you were having trouble letting go. That you were trying to sabotage our relationship because you could not handle me being happy without you. That is what abusers do. They isolate their victims from anyone who might protect them." I took her hand. "He was preparing to cut you off from everyone who loves you. And once you were isolated, he would have taken everything." "How much money did he steal?" "From you specifically?" "Nothing yet. But from other victims. Over $300,000. Maybe more." Jessica put her head in her hands. "I am such an idiot." "Well, you are a woman who believed in love, who wanted to see the best in someone. That does not make you an idiot. Makes you human." We sat in silence for a while. The cleanup crew came in and started taking down decorations, dismantling the wedding that never really happened. Jessica looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For everything. For not listening to you. For letting him turn me against you. For not seeing what he really was." I pulled her close. "You have nothing to apologize for. I am your mother. Protecting you is my job. Even when you hate me for it." "I do not hate you." Jessica cried harder. "Love you. I'm so sorry I ever made you doubt that." We went home that night. Jessica moved back into her childhood bedroom. We ordered takeout and sat in comfortable silence, both of us too exhausted to talk more. The next morning my phone started ringing at 6. It was Linda, my real estate agent. "Margaret, you need to see this. Check your email." I opened my laptop. The email contained a news article. "Local man arrested in multi-state fraud scheme." Marcus's photo was right there on the front page. The article detailed his crimes going back 5 years. Multiple victims. Multiple states. multiple names. But the most shocking part was at the end. Police are investigating potential accomplices. They believe Webb may have been working with partners in a larger operation targeting wealthy widows and their daughters. Partners. I read the sentence 3 times. Marcus had not been working alone. I called Robert my private investigator. Did you know about this? I suspected. He sounded tired. I found some communications that suggested he was reporting to someone, sharing information. But I could not prove it. Can you prove it now? Give me a week. If there are partners, I will find them. I hung up and stared at the article. If Marcus had partners, that meant other families were in danger right now. Other daughters were being manipulated. Other mothers were being gaslit into stepping back. I could not let that happen. Over the next few days, more information came to light. Detective Williams kept me updated as the investigation expanded. They had found Marcus's phone, filled with encrypted messages to unknown contacts. They had traced money transfers to offshore accounts. They had connected him to at least 6 other cases in 4 different states. Each case followed the same pattern. Wealthy widow with an adult daughter. Charming man who sweeps the daughter off her feet. Gradual isolation from family and friends. Engagement. Then the money starts disappearing. Jessica recovered slowly. She took a week off work. Cancelled the honeymoon. Returned all the wedding gifts. The humiliation was intense, but she handled it with grace. I am not the first woman to be conned by a handsome man. She said it matter-of-factly while packing up the wedding presents. And I will not be the last. Well, but maybe we can help prevent it from happening to others. She looked at me curiously. What do you mean? I showed her the research I had been doing. The statistics on romantic fraud. The lack of resources for victims. The way law enforcement struggled to prosecute these cases because victims were too embarrassed to come forward. What if we started something? A foundation or a support network. Something to help families who suspect their loved ones are being targeted. Jessica considered this. Using my humiliation to help other people. That actually sounds perfect. We spent the next month building the framework. I used the money from the beach house sale to fund it. Jessica used her marketing skills to create the website and social media presence. We called it Second Chances, a resource for families dealing with romantic fraud. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within a week, we had 50 people reaching out for help. Within a month, we had handled over 200 cases. The need was enormous. But the most important case came 6 weeks after the wedding that never happened. A woman named Patricia called our hotline. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. Please, you have to help me. My daughter is engaged to this man. He seems perfect, but something is wrong. I cannot explain it, but I know he is lying about something. I took down her information. Promised we would investigate. Then I forwarded everything to Robert. He called me back within 24 hours. Margaret, you need to hear this. The man Patricia's daughter is engaged to? His name is Andrew Sullivan. But his real name is Marcus Webb's former business partner. My blood went cold. They are still operating. Not just operating. Expanding. We have identified at least 4 different men working this same scheme right now. Different cities. Different names. Same pattern. We need to stop them. Robert was quiet for a moment. That is a much bigger operation than we can handle alone. We need law enforcement involved. Federal level. Then let us get federal law enforcement involved. The next few months were a blur. Working with the FBI. Building cases against multiple suspects. Tracking money across state lines. It was exhausting and terrifying and absolutely necessary. Jessica threw herself into the work. She reached out to other victims, building a network of support. She spoke at conferences about recognizing manipulation tactics. She became the face of Second Chances, sharing her story openly to help others avoid the same fate. I watched my daughter transform from a heartbroken bride into a fierce advocate. She was stronger than I had ever imagined, braver than I had dared to hope. One day, 6 months after the wedding, she came home with news. Mom, I got a call from the FBI today. They arrested 4 more men connected to Marcus's operation. They think we have helped break up one of the largest romantic fraud rings in the country. I hugged her tight. Your father would be so proud of you. He would be proud of both of us. Jessica pulled back and smiled. We took something horrible and turned it into something good. That night, I received an unexpected visitor. Detective Williams stood on my doorstep, looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Chen, I need to tell you something. It is about Marcus. Has something happened? He wants to talk to you. In prison. He has been asking for a meeting for weeks. Why? He says he wants to apologize. That he has information that could help with the larger investigation. But he will only talk to you. I considered this. Part of me wanted nothing to do with Marcus Webb. But another part was curious. What could he possibly say that would matter now? I will do it. But Jessica comes with me. The prison was cold and gray. Marcus looked different in his orange jumpsuit. Smaller somehow. Less confident. The charm was completely gone. Mrs. Chen. Jessica. He sat down across from us in the visiting room. Thank you for coming. What do you want, Marcus? Jessica's voice was hard. Cold. I want to apologize. He looked down at his hands. For everything. For lying to you. For trying to steal from your family. For what I said to your mother. Your apology means nothing. Jessica leaned forward. You tried to ruin my life. You tried to destroy my relationship with my mother. No. Marcus met her gaze. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. But that is not why I asked you to come. Then why? He pulled out a piece of paper covered in names and addresses. Because there are 14 other men out there right now doing exactly what I did. Targeting vulnerable women. Isolating them from their families. Stealing their money and their futures. I took the paper. This is everyone in your network. Everyone I know about. There might be more. Marcus rubbed his face tiredly. We were part of something bigger. Something organized. I do not even know who runs it. But these men. I know them. I worked with them. And they need to be stopped. Why should we trust you? I studied his face for any sign of manipulation. Because Jessica deserves better. Because all those women out there deserve better. Marcus's voice cracked. Cannot undo what I did. But maybe I can stop it from happening to someone else. We gave the list to the FBI. Over the next year, 13 of the 14 men were arrested. The 14th disappeared and was still being hunted. But the network was broken. Second chances grew. We opened a physical office. Hired trained counselors. Partnered with law enforcement agencies nationwide. We helped hundreds of families. And Jessica. She thrived. The woman who had been told she was weak and naive became a powerful voice for victims everywhere. She wrote a book about her experience. She testified before Congress about the need for better protections against romantic fraud. 1 year after the wedding that never happened, Jessica and I were invited to speak at a victims' rights conference. We stood on stage in front of 300 people and told our story. My mother saved my life. Jessica's voice was strong and clear. She risked our relationship to protect me. She refused to disappear even when she was told that was the only option. She showed me what real love looks like. I looked at my daughter with pride. The pain of that terrible day had transformed into something powerful, something that was helping others. After the conference, a young woman approached us. She was crying. My mom has been telling me something is wrong with my boyfriend. I did not want to listen. But after hearing your story, I think I need to investigate. We helped her. Course we did. That was what we did now. We helped families see the truth before it was too late. That night, Jessica and I sat in our hotel room, exhausted but satisfied. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you regret it? The way you exposed Marcus. The humiliation at the wedding. I thought about that day. The envelopes. The arrest. The look on Jessica's face when her world collapsed. Well, I do not regret it. Because that day gave you your life back. And it gave us a purpose. Jessica nodded. You know, Marcus told me once that the greatest gift would be you disappearing. But he was wrong. The greatest gift was you refusing to disappear. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights through the window, thinking about all the families we had helped, all the women we had warned, all the predators we had exposed. Marcus Webb had wanted me gone. He had tried to erase me from my daughter's life. But instead, his cruelty had given me a mission, a reason to fight, a way to protect not just my own daughter but hundreds of others. The organization we built became one of the leading resources for romantic fraud victims in the country. We worked with law enforcement to train officers in recognizing these patterns. We lobbied for stronger laws protecting victims. We created educational programs for young women about manipulation tactics. And through it all, Jessica and I grew closer than we had ever been. The bond that Marcus tried to break became stronger than steel. 2 years after the wedding, I received a letter in the mail. The return address was the federal prison where Marcus was serving his sentence. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Dear Mrs. Chen, I am writing to inform you that I testified in the case against the leaders of the fraud network. 3 men have been arrested and charged with organizing the scheme that involved me and 13 others. The FBI says your foundation's research was instrumental in building the case. I know I can never make up for what I did. But I hope that in some small way this helps. Tell Jessica I am sorry. Tell her she deserves all the happiness in the world. Marcus Webb. I showed the letter to Jessica. She read it without expression, then folded it carefully and handed it back. Do you believe him? She asked. I think he is sorry he got caught. But I also think he is telling the truth about wanting to help. People are complicated. Are you going to write back? No. But I will make sure the FBI knows about his cooperation. We never heard from Marcus again. But the ripple effects of his testimony continued. More arrests. More victims coming forward. More families being protected. 3 years after the wedding, Jessica met someone new. His name was David. He was a teacher. Kind, patient, and completely transparent about his life. He made her laugh. He respected her boundaries. And most importantly, he encouraged her relationship with me. The first time I met him, he shook my hand and smiled. Mrs. Chen, Jessica has told me so much about you. About your work and your courage. I am honored to meet you. I studied him carefully. Looking for the charm that hid cruelty. Looking for the manipulation. But all I saw was genuine warmth. David, if you ever hurt my daughter, I have an entire network of private investigators who can make your life very difficult. He laughed. I would expect nothing less. And I promise you, hurting Jessica is the last thing I would ever do. They dated for 2 years. Slow and careful. Building trust. Being honest. When David finally proposed, he came to me first. Mrs. Chen, I want to ask Jessica to marry me. But I wanted your blessing first. I know what happened last time. I know the trauma she carries. I promise you I will spend the rest of my life making sure she never questions my love or my honesty. I gave them my blessing. And this time I meant it. Their wedding was small, intimate, just close family and friends. No elaborate reception. No mysterious envelopes. Just 2 people who loved each other making a genuine commitment. I walked Jessica down the aisle. She looked beautiful, happy, confident. Nothing like the broken bride I had held 3 years earlier. As we reached the altar, she squeezed my hand. Thank you for never giving up on me. Always, sweetheart. Always. David's vows were simple and honest. Jessica, you are the strongest person I know. You turned pain into purpose. You transformed humiliation into helping others. I promise to support you in that mission for the rest of our lives. Jessica's vows made me cry. David, you taught me that love does not isolate, does not manipulate, does not ask people to choose. Real love brings people together, builds connections, makes you stronger, not weaker. I promise to love you with that same honesty every day. I kissed. Everyone applauded. And this time the happiness was real. At the reception, I gave the mother of the bride speech I never got to give 3 years ago. I talked about strength and resilience. About the power of truth and the courage to protect the people you love. My daughter asked me once if I regretted what I did. If I regretted destroying her wedding to expose a fraud. I looked out at the guests, many of whom had been at that other wedding. Many of whom now worked with second chances or supported our mission. I do not regret it. Because that day, as painful as it was, gave us all something precious. It gave Jessica her freedom. Gave us our mission. And it reminded us that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to disappear when someone tries to erase you. The organization continued to grow. We expanded to 12 states. Helped thousands of families. Trained law enforcement agencies across the country. The work was hard and often heartbreaking, but it mattered. Jessica and David bought a house near mine. Not the beach house that Marcus had coveted, but a modest home they could afford themselves. They filled it with love and laughter. And sometimes late at night I would think about Marcus Webb's words. The greatest gift would be you disappearing forever. He had meant it as a threat. A way to control and manipulate. But those words had actually been a gift. They had shown me what I was capable of. They had given me a purpose beyond motherhood. They had transformed me from someone who could be intimidated into someone who fought back. 5 years after the original wedding, I received an invitation to speak at the FBI Training Academy. They wanted me to teach new agents about romantic fraud patterns, about how to identify and stop these predators. Standing in front of those young agents, I told them about Marcus, about the envelopes, about the choice I made to fight rather than disappear. The hardest part is not the investigation, I explained. The hardest part is convincing victims that someone they love is lying to them. They will defend their abuser. They will attack you for trying to help. You have to be strong enough to take that abuse because you know you are protecting them from something worse. An agent raised her hand. How do you know when to step in? How do you know when investigation becomes invasion of privacy? You know, because your instincts tell you something is wrong. You know, because the patterns are there if you look. You know, because isolation is always a red flag. When someone tries to cut you off from the people who love you, that is not love. That is control. After the training session, several agents came up to thank me. One woman was crying. My sister is engaged to someone like you described. I have been trying to warn her, but she will not listen. What do I do? I gave her our foundation's card. Call us. We can help. And remember, she might hate you now. But if you save her, she will thank you later. The woman nodded and left. Hoped she would call. I hoped we could help one more family. That evening, Jessica called. Mom, guess what? We are opening 3 new offices next month. Boston, Seattle, and Denver. The board approved the expansion. That is wonderful. I felt tears in my eyes. Your father would be so proud. I'm proud too. Jessica's voice was warm. Proud of us. Proud of what we built from the ashes of that terrible day. We talked for another hour. About the foundation. About her marriage. About life. The easy conversation of 2 women who had survived hell and come out stronger. 6 years after Marcus Webb tried to destroy our family, I received a phone call that changed everything again. Mrs. Chen, this is Agent Rodriguez from the FBI. We need your help with something urgent. I sat down, my heart racing. What is it? We have been tracking an international network of romantic fraud operations. Your foundation's database helped us identify patterns we had been missing. But we have a problem. There is a new player. Someone who is training others to be more sophisticated, more careful, harder to catch. Tell me what you need. We need you to go undercover. I almost laughed. Agent Rodriguez, I am 58 years old. Who would I possibly go undercover as? A wealthy widow. His voice was serious. We have intelligence that this new operation specifically targets women your age. Women with assets and adult children. You fit the profile perfectly. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. When do we start? Jessica was not happy when I told her. Absolutely not. Mom, this is too dangerous. You have done enough. Sweetheart, if I can stop even one family from going through what we went through, it is worth the risk. What if something happens to you? What if these people are violent? Then the FBI will protect me. I took her hands. Jessica, I need to do this. Not just for other families. For us. To prove that we can turn our worst experience into something that saves lives. She finally agreed, but only after the FBI promised her daily updates on my safety. The operation took 3 months to set up. They created a fake identity for me. Catherine Morrison, widow of a successful tech entrepreneur. 2 adult children. Estate worth $3 million. Recently moved to Miami to be closer to the ocean. I memorized every detail of my cover story. Learned to play the part of a lonely widow looking for companionship. The FBI set me up in a beautiful waterfront condo and enrolled me in social clubs where targets typically found their victims. Took 2 weeks before someone approached me. His name was James. Or at least that is what he called himself. Mid-40s, handsome in a practiced way, with the same smooth charm that Marcus had possessed. He introduced himself at a charity gala, complimenting my dress and asking intelligent questions about my late husband's business. Within a month we were dating. He took me to expensive restaurants, bought me flowers, told me I was beautiful and interesting and that he had never met anyone like me. Every word was a lie. And I knew it because I had lived this before. The FBI monitored everything. Cameras in my condo recorded our conversations. Microphones caught every manipulative statement. Slowly, carefully, James revealed his true intentions. He talked about investment opportunities, business ventures that needed capital. He mentioned that his own finances were temporarily tied up in a property deal. He asked subtle questions about my assets and my children. Played along perfectly. The lonely widow falling for the charming man. I even introduced him to the FBI agents posing as my adult children. They played their parts beautifully, expressing concern about how quickly the relationship was moving. That was when James made his mistake. He tried to turn me against them. Catherine, I need to be honest with you. Your children seem very controlling. They are questioning everything about our relationship. That is not healthy. Maybe you need some space from them. I smiled and nodded, even as my stomach turned. It was Marcus all over again. The same playbook. The same manipulation. You are right. I said what he wanted to hear. They have always been too involved in my life. Maybe it is time I made my own decisions. James smiled. That triumph in his eyes that I recognized so well. Exactly. You are a grown woman. You do not need their permission to be happy. That night I met with Agent Rodriguez and his team. He is moving faster than we expected. The agent showed me transcripts of messages James had sent to unknown contacts. He is reporting to someone. Planning something big. How big? We think he is part of a cell that targets multiple women simultaneously. They coordinate their efforts, share information, and split the profits. This is organized crime at a sophisticated level. What do you need me to do? Keep playing along. We are close to identifying his partners. Once we have the full network, we move in. 2 weeks later, James suggested we take a trip together. Bahamas. Just the 2 of us. A romantic getaway where we could really get to know each other. I agreed, even though every instinct screamed danger. The FBI set up surveillance in the hotel. They had agents posing as tourists in every area where James might take me. But despite all the precautions, I was terrified. The night before we left, Jessica called. Mom, please be careful. Cannot lose you. You will not lose me. Promise. And when this is over, we are going to save so many people. In the Bahamas, James became more aggressive. He talked about marriage. About combining our finances. About how we could invest together and build an empire. On the 3rd night, he finally revealed his true colors. Catherine, I need your help with something. It is a business opportunity, but I need capital quickly. If you could transfer $500,000 to this account, we could double it in 3 months. I stared at the account information he had written down. This was it. The moment we had been building toward. James, that is a lot of money. I need to think about it. His expression changed. The warmth disappeared. What is there to think about? Thought you trusted me. I thought we had something real. We do. I kept my voice steady even as my heart pounded. But $500,000 is not something I can decide in a moment. He grabbed my arm. Not violently but firmly. Catherine, if you do not do this, it will show me that you do not believe in us. In our future. Pulled my arm away. James, you are hurting me. That was the signal. Within seconds, FBI agents burst through the hotel room door. James was on the ground in handcuffs before he could react. James Morrison, you are under arrest for attempted fraud, conspiracy, and extortion. I watched as they read him his rights. Watched as the charming mask slipped away to reveal the predator underneath. He looked at me with pure hatred. You set me up. I saved myself. There is a difference. The arrest of James Morrison led to 17 more arrests across 6 states. The FBI had been tracking the network for over a year, but my undercover work had provided the final pieces of evidence they needed. When I returned home, Jessica was waiting at the airport. She ran to me and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Do not ever do that again. I will not. Promise. I am too old for undercover work. We drove home in comfortable silence. The danger was over, but the work continued. The foundation had helped expose one of the largest romantic fraud networks in the country. Our database had been instrumental in identifying patterns and connecting cases. A month later, Agent Rodriguez came to visit. He brought a letter of commendation from the FBI director. But more importantly, he brought information. Mrs. Chen, because of your work, we estimate we prevented over 50 families from being victimized. The network you helped us dismantle was operating in 12 countries. The impact of what you did is immeasurable. I am just glad we stopped them. There is something else. The agent pulled out a folder. We found something during the investigation. Something about Marcus Webb. I had not heard that name in years. What about him? He has been running a rehabilitation program in prison, teaching other inmates about the psychology of fraud and manipulation, helping them understand the harm they caused. He has been cooperating with law enforcement for years now, providing information on criminal networks. Is he trying to get out early? Well, Agent Rodriguez shook his head. He has refused every offer of reduced sentence. He says he deserves to serve his full time. The rehabilitation work is something he does because he wants to make amends. I did not know what to say. The man who had tried to destroy my family was trying to become someone better. It did not erase what he had done, but it was something. There is more. The agent continued. Marcus asked if he could write to Jessica, not to ask for forgiveness, just to thank her for what the foundation has done. We told him we would ask you first. I will talk to Jessica. Let her decide. That evening, I told Jessica about Marcus's request. She was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the garden where David was planting roses. What do you think I should do, Mom? I think you should do whatever feels right for you. Forgiveness is not required. Closure is not necessary. You get to decide what you need. Jessica thought about it for a week. Then she wrote a letter. She did not send it to Marcus. She sent it to the FBI to pass along. I do not know if I will ever read your response. I do not know if I will ever forgive you. But I want you to know that what you tried to do to me led to something good. The foundation we built has helped thousands of people. We have stopped dozens of predators like you. We have saved families from the pain you tried to inflict on mine. So in a strange way, I should thank you. Your cruelty gave me purpose. Your manipulation taught me strength. Your lies showed me the value of truth. I hope your rehabilitation is genuine. I hope you use your experience to help others. But I also hope you understand that the damage you did cannot be fully repaired. My wedding day will always be remembered as the day my world fell apart. No amount of good work can change that. But I am building something better from the ruins you left behind. And that is more than you could ever take from me. Jessica. Marcus never responded. Maybe he understood that some apologies cannot be accepted. Some wounds cannot heal. Some relationships cannot be repaired. 7 years after the wedding that never happened, Second Chances celebrated its biggest milestone. We had helped over 10,000 families, trained law enforcement in 43 states, lobbied successfully for stronger protections against romantic fraud. Jessica stood on stage at our anniversary gala, telling our story to hundreds of supporters. She was pregnant now, expecting her first child. Daughter. She was going to name her Grace. My mother taught me something important. Jessica's voice carried through the ballroom. She taught me that love does not ask you to choose. It does not isolate or manipulate. It does not try to erase the people who matter. Real love makes you stronger, builds connections, protects. I watched from the front row, tears streaming down my face. My daughter had taken the worst day of her life and transformed it into a legacy of protection and empowerment. After the speech, a young woman approached us. She was crying. My name is Amanda. 5 years ago, you stopped me from marrying someone who was planning to steal from my family. I was so angry at my mother for interfering. I did not speak to her for months. But then I learned the truth. You saved us. Both of us. She handed us a check. For the foundation. It is not much, but I want to help other families the way you helped mine. The check was for $5,000. I looked at her with gratitude. This is incredibly generous. It is the least I can do. Amanda wiped her eyes. You gave me my life back. You gave me my relationship with my mother back. I will spend the rest of my life trying to pay that forward. Stories like Amanda's kept us going through the hard days. Through the families we could not save. Through the predators who got away. Through the victims who were too broken to trust again. The work was never easy. But it was always worthwhile. 8 years after Marcus Webb told me to disappear, I stood in the nursery of Jessica's house, holding my newborn granddaughter. Grace looked up at me with curious eyes, completely unaware of the journey that had led to this moment. "Hello, little one," I whispered. "You're going to grow up in a world where women protect each other. Where mothers do not have to choose between their daughters and honesty. Where love is real and manipulation is exposed." Jessica came into the room, still tired from delivery but glowing with happiness. She is perfect, is she not? Yes, just like her mother. David joined us, wrapping his arms around Jessica. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen, for everything you did. If you had not been brave enough to expose Marcus, I never would have met Jessica. This moment would not exist." I smiled through tears. Sometimes the worst things lead to the best outcomes. We just have to be brave enough to survive the journey. That night, I went home to my quiet house. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the back porch, looking at the stars, thinking about the path that had led me here. Marcus Webb had told me the greatest gift would be my disappearance. He had tried to erase me from my daughter's life. He had wanted me gone so he could steal from my family without interference. But I had not disappeared. I had fought back. I had exposed him. I had turned his cruelty into a mission that saved thousands of people. In trying to erase me, he had actually made me stronger than ever. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Thank you for being the strongest woman I know. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for teaching Grace to be brave like her grandmother." I replied simply, "Love you. Always." 9 years after the wedding, I received one final letter from Marcus Webb. It arrived at the foundation office, screened by security before it reached me. Inside was a single page. "Mrs. Chen, I am writing this letter knowing you may never read it. I do not expect forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I wanted you to know that the work you and Jessica have done has reached even inside these prison walls. The rehabilitation program I run uses your foundation's materials. We teach inmates about the harm caused by manipulation and fraud. We show them the ripple effects of their crimes. Many of these men have children, daughters. The stories from your foundation have opened their eyes to the damage they caused. Some of them are now working to make amends. Some of them are cooperating with investigations. Some of them are simply learning to be better people. I know I cannot undo what I did. I cannot give Jessica back the wedding she deserved. I cannot erase the trauma I caused. But I can try to prevent other men from making the same mistakes. Your refusal to disappear saved more than just your family. It saved countless others. including, in a strange way, me. You showed me that consequences matter. That actions have impacts beyond what we can see. That being caught was the best thing that could have happened to me because it forced me to face what I was. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the person I pretended to be. It is the least I can do. Thank you for not disappearing. Thank you for fighting back. Thank you for building something good from something terrible. Marcus Webb. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a file. It did not change what he had done. It did not erase the pain. But it showed that even the worst people could choose to become better. That evening I showed the letter to Jessica. She read it silently, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she handed it back to me. Do you believe him? She asked. I think I believe he is trying. Whether he succeeds or not is his journey, not ours. Our journey is about the people we help, the families we save, the future we are building. Jessica nodded. Then that is enough for me. He is not part of our story anymore. We wrote a better ending without him. 10 years after Marcus Webb tried to destroy our family, Second Chances reached a new milestone. We had helped prevent over $50 million in fraud. We had trained over 10,000 law enforcement officers. We had provided support to over 20,000 families. But the numbers did not tell the whole story. The real story was in the lives we had touched. The mothers who learned to trust their instincts. The daughters who learned to recognize manipulation. The families who stayed connected instead of being torn apart. Jessica and I were invited to testify before Congress again. They were considering new legislation to strengthen protections against romantic fraud, to create a national database of known offenders, to require financial institutions to flag suspicious patterns. Standing before the committee, Jessica told our story one more time. But this time she added something new. 10 years ago, my mother made the hardest choice of her life. She chose to protect me even when I did not want to be protected. She chose truth over comfort. She chose action over silence. And that choice saved not just me but thousands of others. She paused, looking at me in the audience. The man who tried to destroy our family wanted my mother to disappear. But instead, she became impossible to ignore. She became a voice for victims, a protector of families, a force that predators learned to fear. Jessica's voice grew stronger. That is what we need to remember. When someone tries to silence you, to erase you, to make you disappear, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse. Stand up. Fight back. Use your voice to protect others. The committee passed the legislation unanimously. The law was named the Family Protection Act. It included provisions for victim support, predator databases, and mandatory reporting requirements. At the signing ceremony, the president shook my hand. Mrs. Chen, your courage has changed the landscape of victim protection in this country. Thousands of families are safer because you refuse to disappear. I am just a mother who protected her child. Anyone would have done the same. No, Mrs. Chen. Not everyone would have. That is what makes you extraordinary. After the ceremony, Jessica and I walked through the Capitol Gardens. Grace was 5 now, running ahead of us chasing butterflies. David followed close behind, making sure she did not get too far. Mom, do you ever think about that night? The night Marcus told you to disappear. All the time. It was the night that changed everything. Do you regret any of it? The way you exposed him. The humiliation at the wedding. I thought about the question carefully. Do I regret that your wedding day was ruined? Do I regret that you had to experience that pain? Absolutely. But do I regret stopping him? No. Not for a second. Jessica took my hand. I used to be so angry at you. 4 months after the wedding, I blamed you for ruining everything. I thought you were jealous and controlling and trying to sabotage my happiness. No. That was the hardest part. Knowing you hated me for protecting you. But then I started seeing the evidence. Started understanding what he really was. Started realizing that every instinct you had was right. Jessica squeezed my hand. And I understood that you loved me enough to let me hate you. That is real love, Mom. Not the kind Marcus pretended to give. The kind that sacrifices comfort for safety. We watched Grace playing, her laughter floating on the breeze. She would grow up knowing the story of what her grandmother did. She would learn that love sometimes means making hard choices. That protection sometimes looks like interference. That truth sometimes hurts but lies hurt more. 11 years after the wedding, the foundation opened its 100th office. We had expanded internationally, helping families in 12 countries. The network we had built was vast and effective. But the most rewarding part was not the size of the organization. It was the letters we received. Hundreds of them. From daughters who had been saved from predators. From mothers who had learned to trust their instincts. From families who had stayed connected because someone had warned them in time. One letter stood out. It was from a woman named Marie. She wrote about how her daughter had been engaged to a man who seemed perfect. But something felt wrong. Marie had contacted Second Chances, and we had investigated. Within a week, we had discovered the man had 3 other fiancés in 3 other states. All of them from wealthy families. Because of you, Marie wrote, my daughter did not marry that monster. Because of you, our family is still whole. Because of you, I still have a relationship with my child. I can never thank you enough for showing me that a mother's instincts matter. That protection is not control. That sometimes love means being the villain in someone's story until they realize you were the hero all along. I kept that letter in my desk drawer. On hard days when the work felt overwhelming, I would read it and remember why we started this journey. 12 years after Marcus Webb tried to erase me, I celebrated my 70th birthday surrounded by family and friends. Jessica and David were there with Grace and their new son, Thomas. The foundation staff came. Victims we had helped came. Law enforcement officers we had trained came. Detective Williams, now retired, raised a glass. To Margaret Chen, the woman who refused to disappear. The woman who turned her worst day into a legacy of protection. The woman who proved that mothers will always fight for their children, no matter the cost. Everyone applauded. I looked around the room at all these people whose lives had been touched by our work. Families that were whole because we had intervened. Children who were safe because we had warned their parents. Communities that were protected because we had exposed the predators. Jessica stood up to give a toast. 12 years ago, a cruel man told my mother the greatest gift would be her disappearance. She smiled at me. He was wrong. The greatest gift was her refusal, her strength, her courage to stand up when everyone told her to back down. She raised her glass higher. Mom, you taught me that love is not passive. It does not sit quietly and watch people you care about walk into danger. Real love fights. Real love protects. Real love refuses to disappear even when it would be easier to walk away. The room erupted in applause again. Grace climbed onto my lap and hugged me tight. Grandma, you are my hero. I held her close. This beautiful child who existed because I had refused to let a predator destroy my family. And you are mine, sweetheart. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the journey. From the woman who was told to disappear to the woman who became impossible to ignore. From the heartbroken mother at a ruined wedding to the founder of an organization that saved thousands. Marcus Webb had wanted me gone. He had tried to isolate my daughter. He had attempted to steal from my family. He had demanded that I erase myself from their lives. But in trying to make me disappear, he had actually given me something precious. Purpose, mission, a reason to fight that extended far beyond my own family. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Jessica. Thank you for letting me protect you 12 years ago. Thank you for standing beside me as we built something good from something terrible. Thank you for being the strongest, bravest woman I know. She responded immediately. Thank you for refusing to disappear. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for being my mother. I put the phone down and closed my eyes, grateful for the journey that had brought me here. Grateful for the families we had saved. Grateful for the predators we had stopped. Grateful for the daughter who had forgiven me and become my partner in this mission. Marcus Webb had asked for my disappearance. Instead, I had become unforgettable. And in becoming unforgettable, I had helped thousands of families stay whole. That was the greatest gift of all. Not the disappearance he demanded, but the presence I insisted on. Not the silence he wanted, but the voice I refused to quiet. Not the erasure he attempted, but the legacy I built. 13 years after that terrible night in the gazebo, I received news that Marcus Webb had been released from prison. He had served his full sentence. No early release despite his cooperation and rehabilitation work. I was not afraid. The foundation was strong. Our networks were extensive. If he tried to return to his old ways, we would know immediately. But according to Agent Rodriguez, Marcus had different plans. He is working with a rehabilitation center for ex-convicts, teaching classes on ethical behavior and accountability. He has not contacted any of his former victims. He is trying to live quietly. Let him try to be better. But we will be watching. A month after his release, I received a package. Inside was a book. The title was From Predator to Protector: One Man's Journey from Fraud to Redemption. The author was Marcus Webb. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. I opened to the first page. The dedication read, "To Jessica and Mrs. Chen. Cannot give back what I took. But I can try to prevent others from taking what they should not. This book is my attempt to do better." I read the whole thing in one sitting. It was Marcus's story. His childhood. His descent into fraud. The thrill of manipulation. The cold calculation of targeting victims. And then the arrest. The exposure. The consequences. He wrote about watching Jessica's face as her wedding collapsed. About seeing the pain he had caused. About the moment he realized he had destroyed something beautiful for temporary gain. The final chapter was about his time in prison. The rehabilitation program he had started. The men he had helped reform. The families he had worked to protect through his cooperation with law enforcement. It ended with a simple statement. I cannot undo the past. But I can try to create a different future. Not for forgiveness. Not for redemption. But because it is the right thing to do. Because Mrs. Chen showed me that refusing to disappear is the most powerful choice anyone can make. I tried to erase her. Instead, she became impossible to forget. I put the book down and stared out the window. I did not know if Marcus Webb had truly changed. I did not know if his rehabilitation was genuine or just another performance. But I knew this. His attempt to destroy my family had failed. His demand that I disappear had backfired spectacularly. And whether he was sincere or not, the work we had done would continue. Jessica came over that evening. I showed her the book. She flipped through it without reading, then set it aside. Does it matter if he changed? Not really. What matters is what we built. What we continue to build every day. Exactly. Jessica smiled. He does not get to be part of our story anymore. We wrote a better ending without him. 14 years after the wedding that never happened, I received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The citation read, "For extraordinary dedication to protecting families from fraud and manipulation. For building an organization that has saved thousands from financial and emotional devastation. For showing that one person's refusal to be silenced can change the world." Standing in the White House, medal around my neck, I thought about that night in the gazebo. About Marcus's cruel words. About the choice I had made to fight instead of disappear. If he had not tried to erase me, none of this would exist. The foundation. The legislation. The thousands of families we had helped. It was all because I had refused his demand. In trying to make me disappear, Marcus Webb had actually ensured I would never be forgotten. After the ceremony, Jessica hugged me tight. Dad would be so proud. You took the worst moment of our lives and turned it into something amazing. We turned it into something amazing. Corrected her. This was never just my work. It was ours. Grace and Thomas ran up, excited to see the medal. Can I wear it, Grandma? Someday, sweetheart. When you are old enough to understand what it represents. What does it represent? Thomas asked. It represents refusing to disappear when someone tries to erase you. It represents fighting for the people you love. It represents turning pain into purpose. Thomas nodded seriously, processing this. Like how you saved Mom from the bad man. Exactly like that. 15 years after Marcus Webb told me to disappear, I sat in my garden watching the sunset. The foundation was thriving. Jessica was happy. Grace and Thomas were growing up strong and confident. My life was full and meaningful. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer. But something made me pick up. Mrs. Chen. The voice was hesitant. This is Marcus Webb. Please do not hang up. I should have. But I did not. What do you want, Marcus? I wanted to thank you. His voice was quiet. For not letting me destroy your family. For building something good from my worst actions. For showing me that consequences matter and that people can change if they are willing to do the work. I did not do any of that for you, Marcus. I did it for Jessica. For all the families like ours. No. And that is what makes it so powerful. You did not try to get revenge. You tried to prevent others from experiencing what you went through. That is real strength. Was there something else you wanted? Just to say that I understand now. What you did at the wedding. Why you exposed me so publicly. It was the only way to truly save Jessica. And I am grateful even though it cost me everything. Should have cost you everything. What you tried to do was monstrous. No. And I am spending the rest of my life trying to prevent others from being monsters like I was. I will never be able to fix what I broke. But maybe I can prevent future breaking. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said something I never expected to say. Good luck with that, Marcus. Hope you succeed. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the journey. From the woman who was told to disappear to the woman who became impossible to ignore. From the heartbroken mother at a ruined wedding to the founder of an organization that saved thousands. Marcus Webb had wanted me gone. He had tried to isolate my daughter. He had attempted to steal from my family. He had demanded that I erase myself from their lives. But in trying to make me disappear, he had actually given me something precious. Purpose. Mission. A reason to fight that extended far beyond my own family. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Jessica. Thank you for letting me protect you 12 years ago. Thank you for standing beside me as we built something good from something terrible. Thank you for being the strongest, bravest woman I know. She responded immediately. Thank you for refusing to disappear. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for being my mother. I put the phone down and closed my eyes, grateful for the journey that had brought me here. Grateful for the families we had saved. Grateful for the predators we had stopped. Grateful for the daughter who had forgiven me and become my partner in this mission. Marcus Webb had asked for my disappearance. Instead, I had become unforgettable. And in becoming unforgettable, I had helped thousands of families stay whole. That was the greatest gift of all. Not the disappearance he demanded, but the presence I insisted on. Not the silence he wanted, but the voice I refused to quiet. Not the erasure he attempted, but the legacy I built. 13 years after that terrible night in the gazebo, I received news that Marcus Webb had been released from prison. He had served his full sentence. No early release despite his cooperation and rehabilitation work. I was not afraid. The foundation was strong. Our networks were extensive. If he tried to return to his old ways, we would know immediately. But according to Agent Rodriguez, Marcus had different plans. He is working with a rehabilitation center for ex-convicts, teaching classes on ethical behavior and accountability. He has not contacted any of his former victims. He is trying to live quietly. But let him try to be better. But we will be watching. A month after his release, I received a package. Inside was a book. The title was From Predator to Protector. One Man's Journey from Fraud to Redemption. The author was Marcus Webb. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. I opened to the first page. The dedication read, To Jessica and Mrs. Chen. Cannot give back what I took. but I can try to prevent others from taking what they should not. This book is my attempt to do better. I read the whole thing in one sitting. It was Marcus's story. His childhood. His descent into fraud. The thrill of manipulation. The cold calculation of targeting victims. And then the arrest. The exposure. The consequences. He wrote about watching Jessica's face as her wedding collapsed. About seeing the pain he had caused. About the moment he realized he had destroyed something beautiful for temporary gain. The final chapter was about his time in prison. The rehabilitation program he had started. The men he had helped reform. The families he had worked to protect through his cooperation with law enforcement. It ended with a simple statement. I cannot undo the past. But I can try to create a different future. Not for forgiveness. Not for redemption. But because it is the right thing to do. Because Mrs. Chen showed me that refusing to disappear is the most powerful choice anyone can make. I tried to erase her. Instead, she became impossible to forget. I put the book down and stared out the window. I did not know if Marcus Webb had truly changed. I did not know if his rehabilitation was genuine or just another performance. But I knew this. His attempt to destroy my family had failed. His demand that I disappear had backfired spectacularly. And whether he was sincere or not, the work we had done would continue. Jessica came over that evening. I showed her the book. She flipped through it without reading, then set it aside. Does it matter if he changed? Not really. What matters is what we built. What we continue to build every day. Exactly. Jessica smiled. He does not get to be part of our story anymore. We wrote a better ending without him. 14 years after the wedding that never happened, I received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The citation read, "For extraordinary dedication to protecting families from fraud and manipulation. For building an organization that has saved thousands from financial and emotional devastation. For showing that one person's refusal to be silenced can change the world." Standing in the White House, medal around my neck, I thought about that night in the gazebo. About Marcus's cruel words. About the choice I had made to fight instead of disappear. If he had not tried to erase me, none of this would exist. The foundation. The legislation. The thousands of families we had helped. It was all because I had refused his demand. In trying to make me disappear, Marcus Webb had actually ensured I would never be forgotten. After the ceremony, Jessica hugged me tight. Dad would be so proud. You took the worst moment of our lives and turned it into something amazing. We turned it into something amazing. Corrected her. This was never just my work. It was ours. Grace and Thomas ran up, excited to see the medal. Can I wear it, Grandma? Someday, sweetheart. When you are old enough to understand what it represents. What does it represent? Thomas asked. It represents refusing to disappear when someone tries to erase you. It represents fighting for the people you love. It represents turning pain into purpose. Thomas nodded seriously, processing this. Like how you saved Mom from the bad man. Exactly like that. 15 years after Marcus Webb told me to disappear, I sat in my garden watching the sunset. The foundation was thriving. Jessica was happy. Grace and Thomas were growing up strong and confident. My life was full and meaningful. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer. But something made me pick up. Mrs. Chen. The voice was hesitant. This is Marcus Webb. Please do not hang up. I should have. But I did not. What do you want, Marcus? I wanted to thank you. His voice was quiet. For not letting me destroy your family. For building something good from my worst actions. For showing me that consequences matter and that people can change if they are willing to do the work. I did not do any of that for you, Marcus. I did it for Jessica. For all the families like ours. You know. And that is what makes it so powerful. You did not try to get revenge. You tried to prevent others from experiencing what you went through. That is real strength. Was there something else you wanted? Just to say that I understand now. What you did at the wedding. Why you exposed me so publicly. It was the only way to truly save Jessica. And I am grateful even though it cost me everything. Should have cost you everything. What you tried to do was monstrous. No. And I am spending the rest of my life trying to prevent others from being monsters like I was. I will never be able to fix what I broke. But maybe I can prevent future breaking. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said something I never expected to say. Good luck with that, Marcus. Hope you succeed. I hung up before he could respond. I did not owe him my time or attention. But I did hope he was genuine. Because every predator who reformed was one less family destroyed. Jessica called later that evening. Did Marcus really call you? News travels fast. David saw it on your caller ID when he dropped off the kids. Are you okay? I'm fine. He wanted to thank me for stopping him. It was strange but not upsetting. Do you believe he has changed? Believe he is trying. Whether he succeeds is not my concern. Our concern is the families we help now. The predators we stop today. The victims we support tomorrow. You are right. Jessica sounded relieved. His story does not matter anymore. Hers does. 16 years after the wedding, I stood at a podium addressing 500 college students. The lecture was titled Recognizing Manipulation in Modern Relationships. These young women needed to hear the truth about romantic predators. I showed them photos of Marcus at the wedding. Handsome, charming, completely convincing. Then I showed them his mugshot. The same man, but the mask was gone. This is what manipulation looks like, I explained. It looks normal. Looks like love. Looks like someone who cares about you. That is what makes it so dangerous. I walked them through the warning signs. Isolation from family and friends. Rushing the relationship. Financial requests. Creating conflict between you and the people who care about you. Making you doubt your instincts. If someone ever tells you to choose between them and your family, that is not love. That is control. Real love builds connections. Does not destroy them. After the lecture, a young woman approached me. She was crying. My boyfriend just asked me to stop talking to my mom so much. He says she is too involved in our relationship. I did not think it was a red flag until I heard you speak. I gave her our foundation's card. Let us investigate. Might be nothing. But it might be everything. That is what the work was really about. Not just stopping predators after the fact, but teaching young women to recognize the signs before it was too late. Empowering mothers to trust their instincts. Building a culture where manipulation was exposed and rejected. 17 years after Marcus tried to erase me, Jessica gave birth to her third child. Another daughter. They named her Margaret. After me. Holding baby Margaret in my arms, I felt the weight of the journey. From being told to disappear to having a grandchild named after me. From being erased to being honored. From being silenced to being heard around the world. This little girl will grow up knowing your story, Grandma, Jessica said. She will know that her grandmother refused to be erased. That she fought for her family. That she turned cruelty into compassion and pain into purpose. Tell her the truth. Tell her it was hard. Tell her I was terrified and angry and heartbroken. But tell her also that sometimes the hardest choices are the most important ones. I will. Jessica kissed her daughter's forehead. And I will teach her to be brave like you. To trust her instincts. To fight for the people she loves. 18 years after the wedding that never happened, I received news that Marcus Webb had died. Heart attack. Quick and unexpected. He was 52 years old. I did not attend the funeral. But I read his obituary. It mentioned his rehabilitation work. The ex-convicts he had helped. The families he had protected through his cooperation with law enforcement. It also mentioned his criminal past. Both sides of his story remembered honestly. Jessica asked me how I felt about his death. I am sorry his life ended. I am glad he tried to do better. But mostly, I am grateful that his attempt to destroy us failed so completely. That night I wrote in my journal. Something I had not done in years. I wrote about the journey. About the pain and the victory. About the families we had saved and the predators we had stopped. I wrote about Marcus Webb. Not as a villain, though he had certainly been one. Not as a hero of redemption, though he had tried. Just as a cautionary tale. A reminder that people are capable of terrible things. But also capable of change if the consequences are severe enough and the will is strong enough. And I wrote about myself. About the woman I had become. The woman who refused to disappear. The woman who turned a demand for silence into a voice that could not be ignored. Marcus Webb had asked for my disappearance. Instead, I had created a legacy that would outlive us both. That would protect families for generations. That would remind everyone who heard our story that love fights, truth matters, and refusing to be erased is the most powerful choice anyone can make. 19 years after that terrible night, I received a letter from one of Marcus's rehabilitation program students. A man named Daniel who had served time for fraud. He wrote about how Marcus's teaching had changed his life. How he now worked with law enforcement to identify and stop romantic fraud schemes. How he had dedicated his life to preventing others from making his mistakes. Mr. Webb told us about you, Daniel wrote. About how you exposed him. How you refused to disappear. How you built something good from his evil. He said you were the strongest person he ever met. Not because you destroyed him, but because you used his destruction to protect others. That is what I am trying to do now. Protect others. Make amends. Be better. I wrote back. Keep doing the work. Keep protecting people. Keep being better. That is the only redemption that matters. 20 years after Marcus Webb tried to erase me from my daughter's life, the foundation celebrated its 20th anniversary. We had helped over 100,000 families, trained over 50,000 law enforcement officers, created legislation in 37 states. But more than the numbers, we had created a culture shift. People now talked openly about romantic manipulation. Mothers trusted their instincts. Daughters learned to recognize warning signs. Families stayed connected instead of being torn apart by predators. At the anniversary gala, Jessica gave the keynote speech. She was 43 now. Strong, confident, completely herself. Grace and Thomas sat with David in the front row. Baby Margaret, now 3 years old, played quietly with her.